all right? I know you probably felt the same jolt I did when the Cowboys pulled the trigger on that George Pickens trade. I mean, let's be real. You and I both have sat through off-seasons where Dallas stood still, watching the rest of the NFL get aggressive while we clung to hope and cap excuses. But this was different. The Cowboys actually made a bold move. And yet somehow, the national media's already writing it off like it means nothing. No belief, no respect, not even a pause to consider what this could really mean for our offense. It's almost like we're back to square one, again. Now, before we get too deep into this, let me remind you to hit that subscribe button and help us reach our goal of 14,000 subscribers. It's free, it helps the channel grow, and if you're a real Cowboys fan, you know we've got to stick together. And while you're at it, drop a like if you think the Pickens trade at least deserves some credit from the talking heads. But here's where things start to get frustrating. For years, Cowboys fans like you and me have criticized the Jones family, and rightfully so. From overpaying the wrong players to sitting on their hands during free agency, there's a long list of front office decisions that have left us shaking our heads. Jalen Smith's bloated contract, Michael Gallup's extension while still rehabbing. Don't even get me started. We've lived it all. So when they finally do something aggressive, like bringing in a playmaker like Pickens, shouldn't they get a little credit? At least a nod that maybe, just maybe, they're trying to do something different? Instead, what we get are voices on national TV asking if this even moves the needle. Really? Let me ask you this, and be honest. Do you believe the Pickens trade changes this team's ceiling in 2025, yes or no? Scroll down and drop your answer in the comments because I'm genuinely curious where Cowboys Nation stands on this. And don't worry, we're just getting started. Let's break this whole thing down together, because what comes next might surprise you. Let's zoom in on what George Pickens actually brings to the table, because if we're going to talk about whether this trade moves the needle, we've got to get past the surface-level noise. This isn't just about adding another name to the roster. This is about potential, fit, and attitude, and Pickens checks all three boxes in ways the Cowboys desperately needed. First off, let's talk about his game. Pickens isn't just a deep threat, he's a contested catch monster. He's got that physicality that Dallas has been lacking since Dez Bryant left. Yeah, CeeDee Lamb is elite, no doubt. But what the Cowboys have missed is that other guy, the one who can win one-on-one down the sideline, out-muscle corners, and force defenses to stay honest. Michael Gallup was supposed to be that guy, but after the injury, you and I both saw the drop-off. That burst, that confidence, it just wasn't there anymore. Pickens brings that edge back. And let's be clear, he's only 23. That's not just youth, that's upside. He's under contract through 2025 at a very manageable cost, which is rare for a wide receiver with his ceiling. Some say he comes with attitude issues, but I'd argue the Cowboys need more attitude, not less. If you watch this team fade late in big moments the last few years, you know what I'm talking about. We've had too many soft exits, too many "we'll get 'em next time" speeches. Pickens? He's not wired like that. Now, let me turn it over to you again. What's the one trait you think this Cowboys offense has been missing? Is it toughness, swagger, speed, reliability? Vote in the poll and then tell me your answer in the comments. I want to hear from you, because your perspective as a real fan matters more than any analyst reading off a teleprompter. Look, this trade didn't happen in a vacuum. It signals something deeper about how this front office is thinking. But before we get there, we need to ask, was Pickens really the right target, or was he just the best available option? Let's explore that next. Now, let's take a step back and ask the tough question. Was George Pickens truly the right target? Or was this front office simply reacting, looking for a quick fix after missing on other names? If you've followed the Cowboys this offseason, and I know you have, you've seen the pattern. The Cowboys weren't exactly aggressive when the top-tier wideouts became available. They didn't push for T. Higgins, even, as the Bengals drama dragged on. Brandon Ayuk? Just rumors, no real action. Deebo Samuel? more smoke than fire. So now with Pickens, it almost feels like the front office said, we need someone with WR1 traits who won't cost us a first-rounder. And that brings us to reality. Pickens might not have been plan A, B, or even C. But here's where it gets interesting. Sometimes the best moves are the ones that come out of necessity. Think about when the Cowboys traded for Amari Cooper in 2018. That wasn't part of a grand strategy either. It was a mid-season panic move that turned out to be a game changer. Could Pickens be the next version of that? A guy who steps in and transforms the offense, not because he was the top name on the board, but because he just fits? Still, you've got to question the timing. Why now? Why not during the draft when leverage was lower and teams were reshuffling? Why not earlier in free agency when more options were on the table? Was this trade about solving a need, or was it about optics, trying to convince fans they're not punting on 2025? Let me toss this to you. Do you think the Cowboys genuinely targeted Pickens because of fit, or was this a scramble after Plan A fell through? Vote in the poll and then break it down in the comments. I want to see what you really think, because sometimes the fans see through the noise better than the front office does. Now, we've looked at Pickens' upside and questioned whether he was the right target. But here's the next big question. How does this move affect the locker room and Dak Prescott's future with the team? Because make no mistake, this trade has ripple effects. That's what we're diving into next. All right, so now that we've talked about the trade itself, let's focus on the bigger picture. How does George Pickens fit with Dak Prescott and the rest of this offense? Because let's be real, Dak is the key to all of this. One thing that's been clear over the last few seasons is that Dak doesn't have the luxury of an elite wideout core to work with. Sure, CeeDee Lamb is great, but as we saw last year, opposing defenses were hyper-focused on stopping him. No one else really stepped up consistently, and that's where the frustration builds. Enter George Pickens. With his talent, the Cowboys might finally have that secondary threat they've been desperately needing. And make no mistake, Pickens has the potential to take some of the pressure off ceedee. If Pickens can perform, suddenly defenses can't. Just double-team Lamb and call it a day. They've got to account for Pickens, too. That's how you create an offense that's unpredictable. But here's the thing. We've seen this before, haven't we? How many times have the Cowboys brought in new talent to help Dak, only to see things stall out? From Michael Gallup's injury recovery to the roller coaster ride with Amari Cooper, it's hard to ignore that Dak's weapons often fail to consistently perform at the highest level. So, while Pickens looks great on paper, it all comes down to execution. Let's talk about Dak for a second. It's no secret that Dak's been under the microscope for a while now. Everything from his decision-making to his leadership has been scrutinized. With the addition of Pickens, though, Dak has a chance to silence a lot of that criticism. If he can connect with Pickens and truly build a chemistry, the narrative around Dak could shift. This is the year where Dak could prove that he's got what it takes to lead a top-tier offense. Now, how do you think this affects Dak's trajectory? Is this the kind of move that could help him finally reach that next level? Drop your thoughts below, and if you're enjoying the content, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Let's push toward 14,000 subscribers together. And that brings us to the next issue, the running game. While the passing game could take a leap forward, we still have to figure out how the Cowboys are going to run the ball effectively. We'll get into that next. All right, so now we've covered the offense. Let's talk about what's probably the biggest wild card right now, the defense. It's clear that the Cowboys have been stacking talent on that side of the ball for years, but the key to success this season will be how well it all comes together. We saw flashes of brilliance last year, especially in the secondary and the pass rush, but consistency was lacking, especially when it mattered most. With so many new faces on the coaching staff, there's a lot to figure out. A fresh defensive coordinator, new terminology, and a completely revamped approach could be exactly what the Cowboys need to finally take that next step. But there's a catch. We need time. And as we know, time is something the NFL doesn't always grant you. Think about it. Last season, the defense couldn't quite handle the pressure when it mattered. The San Francisco game comes to mind, allowing 169 rushing yards. That's not the dominant defense we've seen at times in the past. There's potential here, but they need to gel quickly, and that might take a few weeks, especially with key players like Diggs and Overshown recovering from injury. And don't even get me started on the front seven. We've seen some great individual performances, but as a unit, they need to step up and be more disruptive. The Cowboys can't rely solely on their secondary to bail them out. There's a lot of pressure on the linebackers and defensive line to create more chaos at the line of scrimmage, especially with teams like the Eagles and 49ers constantly challenging them. But here's the question. How confident are you in this defense? Do you think they have the talent and leadership to keep the Cowboys competitive in tough matchups? Or do you see a potential weakness that could expose the team in the long run? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And before we finish up, if you're liking what you're hearing, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell for notifications. We're aiming for 14,000 subs, and every single one of you helps us get there. Now, with all the moving parts on both sides of the ball, the Cowboys have to stay healthy and keep building chemistry, because as we know, that's what it's all about in the NFL. Time to see if this team can pull it all together.